crashing. They said they needed a recovery machine. I'm back. What do you know, you're just trashing these things. You know, get them down to whatever your rules and regulations are. I think it was like -10, -20 inches. It's nice.
Jeff, would you like to introduce yourself and we'll get going?
Yeah, so my name is Jeff Hutton with ETS Group. So you guys have been with we've done the Sourman training through us as well with Tyler, question training a little while back. That's also us. I've been background on me, I was started off corporate side about 2000 or 2007, worked for Avery Dennison. Guys well used foil tape at some point in time. So they made paste on. That's what the biggest thing you'll see fast on around here. But fast on foil tape, duct tape, all that stuff. I was a sales manager for them. Managed about 13 rep crews. But then two crazy guys down in Florida talked me into getting into the rep side of the business. Started that with Pro, which was 2007. Parted ways with them about 2016. So I like the training side of it. Better job training, teaching processes and selling product that way rather than selling the box over a counter. You know, that's important for us in our jobs, but I like this aspect of it is making the industry better, making it more efficient and doing it correctly. I've been doing the Appion brand since about 2010. I've learned from some of the best in the industry. If any of you have ever come across Dave Boyd, it was pretty much the guy who created Promax way back in the days with Greg Sunheim and owner of Appion. He taught me everything he knows, and I've worked with a lot of guys from ESCO and things like that. Always willing to learn. You know I don't know everything. So if there is a question you guys have as going through training, please feel free. Something doesn't sound right or whatever else, please just throw it out there. I've been doing this for about 15 years now. It's forte, it's been my second, and so on and so forth. But what we're going to talk about today is the recovery processes. When's the last time you guys actually had a training where you talk about recovery process?
Been a couple of years.
Yeah, it's not really taught. We're just coming out with a recovery machine, but nobody else knows how to use it. There's a lot of misconceptions out there about recovery. A lot of thinking stuff, why it slows down, why this thing bangs around so much, and so on and so forth. We'll go through all of that. We'll focus on this machine just a little bit. This will not be a sales pitch. It's going to be processes. Most of the things that you can do with this recovery machine, you can do a lot of them with others, but there are some differences with this recovery machine versus others. So I will point out that difference. What's that?
It's small.
Yeah. I think it's still lights out there. It's 24 pounds, I want to say.
Wow.
But this will do a chiller. You know, we've done large McQuays, and it doesn't matter how it's refrigerated. This thing will do it. It's just showing you how to use it correctly and get the most out.
Huh. I went from a Promax to that.
Interesting story. I will hit that here when we get started. The Promax connection, because there is a connection. On the evacuation side, yes, we have our plan. I'll be honest with you. We go into normally if I'm a residential contractor, as soon as I get in there, this thing's, unless somebody wants to pay the money for it, think it's cool, and they, okay, it's not necessary. If you're working on 2-port systems, I'll be honest with you, this thing's overkill. Anything over 6 CFM is overkill. I've had to go across that too. We're going to focus on a lot of from the pump itself to the system. What to use, what not to use. There's a lot of things have been taught over the last 10, 20, 30 years. The guys are still using today, and I think you're spending a lot of money on stuff you don't buy new equipment, so on and so forth. We talk about gauges, right? We talk about the gauges are the bad ones. But we'll go through all that. We're going to simplify the process. We're going to speed it up. We're going to cool things down. Or make it a lot faster. In between, if you guys want to, I can touch upon the A2Ls a little bit, because these machines obviously have a lot to do with A2L refrigerants that are coming out. Have you guys had any trainings or anything on A2L so far?
Okay.
Who'd you have in for that? If you don't mind me asking.
Did it.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So you guys have that basic knowledge. That's good. There is so much confusion out in the marketplace with A2Ls. It's unbelievable. I mean, the way I look at it is keep it nice and simple. Yes, they are mildly flammable, right? 4B or 32, and there are other ones out there. But mainly those two, pretty much what they're doing is, for today, just lowering the fire suppressant refrigerant that's already in there. So it's making it a little more plain than what it was. All of these machines, all of our equipment is A12 certified. It'll be interesting to see what that A12 certification really is. There's a lot of confusion still out there with the manufacturers too. Left-hand threads, right-hand threads. What's going to be left-hand? What's going to be right-hand? Some of the people say that they're not going left-handed, but yet the equipment people say they are going left-handed, so. I asked that about, are we gonna be doing adapters to that? As of right now, they'll say no. So we'll see if there's a new marketplace we can make fun. But if you do have any questions for each wells, we can have talk offline. It's good that you guys have training because again, guys are getting them confused with A3s. That's pretty much what it's coming down to. Propanes and your butanes. They're going to put those in residential systems and so on and so forth. I don't know if it's is it still 5.3 ounces or 5.8 ounces of an A3 that you're allowed to have in the system? It was 5.3, and I heard somewhere that they moved it up to 5.8. You're allowed a propane and butane. So the best thing about those, you don't want to use these pieces of equipment on any A3. I don't think there's a single recovery machine out there that's built for A3s. Can you use it technically? You could, but I highly don't recommend it. Back in the days of when Colorado was just starting to get to the point where they were legalizing marijuana and things like that, they would have houses blow up left and right because they were using recovery machines. And I don't know the process, but they're using propane and butane in the process, I guess, to try to recover that. They're using these machines and one of the spark, right? So a lot of these recovery machines or recovery manufacturers are starting to get into that, saying, yeah, this is great business, and then boom, 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 boom. Appian, I think, is the only one right now saying, these are not recommended for use on it. The beautiful thing about that is you don't have to recover, right? Right.
In a lighter.
Well, that's the interesting thing. Usually when I talk about these, one of the best sites, two best sites I have to recommend. One is the National Firefighters page, right? Because you go on there, everything you need to know flammability wise is on there. It's gonna tell you how they put it out, and so on and so forth. It's gonna show you videos of flame spread, so on and so forth. I was doing appliance repair center in Madison a while back, and they deal with 500 all those refrigerants and everything else for the fridges and your bottle coolers, things like that. They all have flammability stickers on now, new ones, because it's propane butane. Whereas about recovery, kind of went through it. One guy's like, "Oh, what is recovery bags?" I didn't even know there was a such thing as a recovery bag. I've been doing this for a long time. I never heard of a recovery bag before in my life. I guess there are real recovery bags. I said, "You have one?" It's like, yeah, it really pulls that thrower back. But it's all they're doing is snipping the lines and put a bag over it and take it outside and let it go. It has no effect whatsoever on those. So first disclaimer, no A3s with recovery. If you need any documentation on A2Ls, Appion's website has it for both this and that. Completely fine. So all your 454s, your Appion products that are out there, so on and so forth, no problems whatsoever. Big difference you're seeing between 454, 410A is a little bit more flammable. Pressures are just about the same. You just reduced one of the mixture components in 410A, which is a 125, and that's what you got.
Did any in the G5 plan take an older one too, or?
So the interesting thing was, and this is going to be debated, if you're close with ESCO, you're going to be hearing about this soon. I think things are going to be cleared up a little bit. But what we did was we went through UL Appian. I don't know about the other companies. I don't know like you. We went and did the testing for A2Ls to get certified through UL. You haven't gone there, you pay a lot of money for a test, then okay, you get your little sticker. From what I understood was that our machines, even before that, we haven't changed, right? Our machine before that can handle the 2Ls. If you're worried or if you're in a facility that you have to show A2L certified, you have an older machine, what you can do is, that's why I passed out that paper. We do all the repairs on all the recovery machines. When you send your G5 twin in, that comes to Emily, my sales manager, and we actually do the repairs on those and certify them and do the warranties.
You can just leave all this.
I don't even have those. But if you do send it in to get repaired, it will come out A2L certified. And when I say repaired, we repair the machine. If there's been any upgrades, this looks exactly the same on the outside of this since 2001 when it first came out, but we made a lot of upgrades inside the machine. So if there's any upgrades available, we put those on there, and then you will get the A2L certification. What it really comes down to is if you need it to be A2L certified, you have to show documentation. Go on the Appian website. We have the pump, we have the recovery machine, documentation, all set, good to go. Right. Same thing with the hoses, tools, instruments, everything else, everything's all A2L good to go. Okay. With that being said, we'll get into the recovery side of things. So, a little background on Appian. This is where the Promax thing comes in. So back in the late 80s, I think it was, Promax was created, right? It was that big blue machine. There was two brothers that created that. Then I think it was like 95, 96, they decided to kind of part ways. One of the guys had to not compete for 5 years. Promax, I think, was bought out by somebody else, taken over to China and manufactured there. So you'll still see some Promax out there. After that 5-year non-compete, he was looking at all the inherent issues of that Promax style machine, which a lot of machines today outside of this one are still using that same technology, right? Single cylinder piston, it rocks up and down. One of the biggest issues that you had with the Promax was, is first piston. Starts off real nice and fast. After about, depending on how much you use it, after 3 months, 6 months, a year, it's slower and slower and slower. What happens is day one, that piston tip top dead center, right? Well, you got rock arms and wrist pins like a train wheel, keep that piston up and down. They're all metal on metal. So you start getting wear in there, you get gapping. When you get that gapping, it starts misfiring. And it gets worse. That's why those machines slow down. So that was the first inherent issue he looked at over those 5 years. With that beyond, we don't have that piston assembly. So the way this works is, and I really want to stress this because when I say this machine is designed for liquid, it's the only real machine out there designed strictly for liquid, not strictly, but with main purpose of pumping liquid. All right. So this is the piston assembly here. Before you had that one single cylinder piston, right? What happens is this gets turned on, you almost have a push-pull inside of the piece of equipment. It's two opposing pistons on a solid orbiting block. So it's almost like a push-pull on the inside, right? So we're cutting that liquid load in half. The one consistent theme you'll hear from me with this machine is do not throttle that machine. It does not need to be throttled. I'll explain why you think you need to at certain times. Go back to your Promax. What does it have on those dials? It's got a little mark on there. What does it say? Liquid, right?
Liquid, yeah.
So when you're getting there and things are getting a little hot, right? Getting a little bangy and it sounds like it's going to blow up on you, you have to throttle it down. Why is that? It was not built technically, right? It's more of a, it's really geared, and most of the machines out there today are geared towards vapor recovery. And really, it was up at Stripper up in Michigan. Just coming in to do a class, and a bunch of our boxes of G5 twins stacked up, and then on top of it was about 30 sheets of the JB recovery machine sitting right on top. I'm like, little fun sales things, So I take them in, I hand them out to everybody. What are you doing? That's when you look at it. Literally, I can write anything I want on a piece of paper, right? Anybody can. It's always done by the manufacturer. And hey, we got this much liquid per minute, this much vapor per minute. So when you look at these things, we're always brand A, right? They're always coming after us. And usually on the vapor side, their numbers are higher than us. Never talk about liquid recovery. Never. Because again, they're really more like hermetic compressors. They really weren't meant in the first place. So that's what we took care of with this piston assembly. So this is never going to slow down ever. So you're not going to do wear and tear. Okay. The second biggest thing for recovery was crankcase contamination. Now, if you think about that, everybody's got a crankcase inside there, like this is ours here, right? What used to happen was when those piston seals start to wear down, you get oil, acid, and all that moisture starts to leak in past the piston to get down to the crankcase. It just wreaks havoc on the machines. And that's really the reason why these things didn't last so long. So what we ended up doing was we completely sealed the crankcase. So when our pistons start to wear down, all that releases before it hits the crankcase. And I'll explain when you need to change your piston seals and all that. I'll give you some visual cues that'll help you with that. We have no crankcase contamination whatsoever. Since 2001, I don't know how many thousands and thousands of machines are out there. Never had a crankcase issue. No. So that's been taken care of. The bearings were oversized by 800%, and this is completely caked with industrial grease. Right. The reason why I'm bringing these up is because I want you to understand. I do not want you to throttle these things. They can handle it. Okay. The third, I think, one of the more important ones was airflow. You go back to, again, the Promax. A lot of these machines out there, they used to have what 60 CFM muffin fans on. A tiny little fan. You guys remember this group? I think you guys are more around, we're all kind of up there a little bit. We were around with the tower computers, right? Now they're all laptops and everything else. Remember that little muffin fan they had on the back? I think it was like a 30 CFM fan just to blow a little bit of air through. That's what they were using on these recovery machines. So what we did was we originally increased it to a 600 CFM fan. But there's a couple different things. One is when you're working with hot and cold metal parts, so on and so forth, what happens, right? Expansion, contraction, things wear down, so on and so forth. Plus, what's one of the biggest things we generate during recovery processes? Heat, right? So we want to dissipate as much of that heat as we can to keep it off the tank and keep our processes running smoothly. So we put that 600 CFM fan in here. If you've used one of these, it blows a lot of air out, right? About 4 or 5 years ago, we had a little bit of an issue. Nothing bad, but what it was is we had a red fan on the back. So if you guys have a G520 with a red fan, shoot me an email, let me know, we'll swap you out for a new one. What happened was there were plastic gear houses. So after a while, it had the potential to strip and the fan wouldn't run anymore, right? Well, when that fan doesn't run, guess what's gonna happen? Things are gonna get pretty hot, you're gonna have some issues. That guy's melting pistons and things like that. We're gonna have chiller pump a lot of stuff, because the machine's not gonna stop running, but the fan does. So what we did was re-engineered the fan to bump it up to about 700 CFM or 700 CFM. And we redid it so we have a metal gear housing in there, so you have no stripping whatsoever. That's kind of how you can tell if you have an updated machine versus an older machine. Is a red fan versus a blue? Is it all the newer ones? Reds is kind of the older one.
Is that fan red color? When you do-
You'll see it. Yep, you look right in the back. So if you got a blue fan, it's more of a newer. We can tell by the serial number too when that unit was made, so and so. But again, that fan dissipates all that heat as the process is taking effect. Okay, so it's going to help keep everything a lot cooler. Now, with that being said, as I said before, don't throttle this machine. Leave it full bore wide open. They get guys going, well, I'm holding a ton of liquid. It's banging, it's rattling, right? So your first instinct is always to throttle this thing. Well, now it's trying to understand why does it bang? Why does it throttle? I'll stand behind this machine 100%. You're running full liquid, this thing's wide open, something happens to it, call me, take care of it. That's simple. Advan's got phenomenal customer support on it. But it's understanding why that happens. Any ideas? A lot of times what happens with this machine is in the past, you've been so used to having the throttle down to the liquid, right? You've been so used to using your quarter-inch hoses, so used to using your manifolds and so on and so forth to recover. Let me ask, when you guys recover, what's your current setup? Meaning, what are you using? It's pretty much, there's not a right or wrong way. There's just a good and a better way, right?
Straight or tool down, straight down.
And that's the way it should be done. When I get out there, I've taught classes up at Grand Rapids College, a lot of different places. We do a lot of the union events too. The UA up in apprenticeship competitions up in Washington right here. These guys have been through training. They're still using 2 quarter-inch hoses, manifold, and 3/8 hose coming in the machine, right? Well, the problem is, and I'm going to stress this on both processes. So we're talking about quarter-inch hoses, right? What are they called? You buy them in a bag at a distributor. What is the charging hose? Right, charging hoses. Called charging hoses for a reason. Usually when you're charging a system, you're metering in a charge, right? So that's what quarter-inch hoses are for. Take one step further, when you guys buy those manifolds, digital, analog, whatever it is, what are those called?
Manifolds.
Right, same thing. They're all meant for charging. That's it. They were never meant for recovery, and they were never meant for evacuation. There's a bunch of different reasons why, which I'll address. What happens is, and the reason why these things start to bang isn't because the machine can't handle it. It's because go to McDonald's, try this out, it'll make all sense of the ball. Go to McDonald's, grab a Coke, drink that Coke with a coffee stirrer, right? How much effort does it take, and how much volume do you get? It takes a ton of effort, but you get a little bit of volume, right? So you're wearing yourself out. Whereas if you switch a regular McDonald's straw, no problems whatsoever. Minimal effort, tons of volume. It's the same concept with this. Volume isn't the problem. What's happening is the machine's working harder than you're allowing the refrigerant to be pulled through those quarter-inch hoses. And what's your first biggest restriction you have in the system when you're hooking up? Right? With fittings for one, but then you've got Schrader's in it. I know it doesn't look like much, and I'll pass this around. It's huge. It really is. I mean, you're pulling through a quarter-inch connection as it is, but then you're sticking a big ball right through. I would say it's like trying to pull water through a garden hose, all stuck inside. It's going to make these things a lot harder, right? It's going to make them really struggle to get what it wants. That's why you have to throttle it down, because you're not feeding it enough. Right, I'll pass it. So really what it comes down to is, and this is everything. This is flow, this is speed, this is heat, right? Restrictions. Restrictions are everything. And you see a very consistent message on the evacuation part, but on the recovery side, it's huge. So it's understanding, why does a tank heat? Restrictions, right? And so we're pulling for Schraders, I'm pulling for quarter-inch hoses, because usually, again, a lot of guys out there, I would say the majority still Quarter-inch hose is up to a manifold. Manifolds, for the most part, have a quarter-inch bore through. You can upgrade, get a 3/8 bore, with some of the ones that are out there, but most of them are quarter-inch bore. So now every time I'm right angle, same thing. The same thing with vacuum. Every time I'm turning and doing this, it's slowing the process down, and I'm trying to pull it all through quarter-inch connections and fittings and hoses. So the other problem is with manifolds, and this is on both of these processes as well. They're charging manifolds, right? How many of you guys are using digitals? Yeah, right. Yeah, but they're not cheap, are they? No. Whether it's digital or analog, what do they really tell you? Recovery process.
And you pull zero.
Right. Now, how else could I do that though without a manifold? Well, a micron gauge, on the recovery side of things, all I got to do is just get rid of a stub gauge, right? And I can pop it right outside of the board tool. That's going to tell me where I'm at. Because we look at it this way: why are we recovering that system? Fix a leak, compressor, whatever it may be, right?
Disposable.
Or disposable. Something's wrong with that system. So we're going on to pull the refrigerator to either fix it or get rid of it, right? So if there's a leak, we don't know how long that leak's been, all right? What state is that refrigerant probably in? If there's any left, right? Yeah. Because what happens is, and we'll really get into this in the evacuation side, is what happens with 410A when you mix moisture or atmosphere into it? What do you create? Acid, right? Get that form of carry corrosion inside the system and everything else. Acid, sludge, just junk, right? Because it's affecting, and again, I'll touch this R22 versus the 410A and the evacuation side of things, but you're creating acid there. So when you're pulling that out, think about that. We're recovering this acid, this junk. Now I'm pulling through a $600 digital gauge set, or a $400 analog set, right? No matter what it is. What am I doing to all the gaskets and seals inside of that? Rip it apart. Especially these digitals. So you've got transducers in there. You've got all these things that are supposed to be working properly to show you, pressures and so on and so forth. Hey, how many of them have micron gauges on? What's the one thing they say about a micron gauge? Not to get what on? Oil contaminants, right? Well, if that thing's stuck inside your manifold and you're recovering through it, what are the odds that manifolds or that micron gauge should be working right side of it? I think that's one of the worst things manufacturing ever did.
Those things were a big reason.
Yes, was putting a micron gauge inside of a digital gauge set.
Digital gauge channel.
Sorry, I'm not gonna say this.
Well, the one set.
The why anything is it's fit form and application, because with a standing pressure test, you need a digital gauge to see that rise.
Yep.
Yeah, I believe in it. That's why I have one on my low side, but I have an analog on my high side that is simply for that. Can I ask you a quick question? Not to interrupt. So if I'm recovering to a 1/4-inch tank, is that gonna hold me up?
So it's not good at that.
If this is
a good question.
the smallest.
That's a good question. So you're saying on the cylinder, recover cylinder?
Yeah, how do you recover out of a tank and push it into a unit?
Almost like I paid you to ask that question.
Funny you should have asked.
I will address that in 1 second. So let's talk about from the system, right? We're gonna get over to the cylinder. I'll hit that one. So our first thing is we want to open up flow as much as possible. I want you to feed this thing as much as possible. The machine can handle it. I will tell you that. I've got guys, a large chiller systems, 1/2-inch hose in, 1/2-inch hose out. This baby just hums and flies. All right. It's not the amount of refrigerant that you're pulling out of the system. You can handle that. Okay. It's what we're allowing it to bring in. So in 1/4-inch hoses, no. First thing we got to get rid of is what? We're just getting out of that system. What's the first thing we put on? What's the last thing to take off? Core removal tools, right? We got our black ones, we got our big ones. 1/4-inch, we got our 5/16 for your 4-inch systems, right? Which is pretty much every split. I think a lot of them are starting to Americanize now, if I'm not wrong.
They are.
Your Daikin's, I think, your
Mitsubishi.
Mitsubishi's. We work on your VRS. I know Daikin's VRS are all 5/16s. I think Mitsubishi VRS are still 2 5/6, 2/4, 1 5/16. I was on one of the carrier VRS systems recently last summer. And it was still all 5/16. I think it was Toshiba, I want to say. But that's the first thing we got to get out of the way, right? Let's get those shredders out. All of our core tools are vacuum rated. Anything that's vacuum rated, whether it's a hose, whether it says vacuum rated or vacuum certified on it, means you're good out of 20 microns. Been tested and approved on 20 microns, right? That's the biggest thing, especially when we're talking about vacuum, you don't want any leaks. Now, over time, these seals wear out, they give you an extra, set of seals in there, if you guys need seals. Call me, email me, I can just on the truck, I got a whole parts kit back there, I'll hook you guys up. But that's the first big main restriction we need to get out of the way, so we get those straight bars on, right?
We leave that in?
So what we're gonna do is, we're gonna put this on. We're gonna grab that Schrader and remove it, right?
Right.
We're gonna isolate.
Uh-huh.
So the way you look at this is, this can be your temporary access to the system, where it says first thing that goes out of the system, last thing to come off, right? We're gonna recover through this, we're gonna evacuate through this, and then we're gonna charge through this. And then once we're done, if we're repairing a system, whatever else, I always recommend putting a new Schrader in there, it's just good practice, I mean, how much to. What's that?
They're expensive.
Are they the little Schrader valves?
Oh. What about carrier? I'm running into some carrier units.
Other good question.
That oversized freighter, you have a special tool for that?
So I ran into this, it's not just carrier now,
But the unit did have one of the regular ones on there still, but it was like just one.
they call them Core Max,
You don't want
Core Max.
Foreman.
And it's not just carrier now, Green is now doing it too on their rooftops.
Right, you don't do it there.
This brand using it too. A lot of them are starting to come out. Again, I knew carrier was the first one.
valve that you don't have to take out,
Right. So there is a special tool for those. Now you go online and you look at the price of that tool.
But yeah.
I've seen 500, 800.
$1,000 for thing.
Right.
That's like outrageous.
Well, but he's talking about Schrader, all still has a 3/8 stem. So when you heat it up, the 3/8 Schrader access port fits in there real nice. Since you got your torch right there anyway.
So that's why we came out with these. Look like our core tools. These are called our core control tools. Okay. These are. Yeah, so what's gonna happen is they just, you can depress and release the Schrader in. So what we ended up doing was, it was a ream, somebody took it out, they said it wasn't working, blah, 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 so they brought it back to the shop, it was a distributor up in Michigan. And he's trying to put core tools on there and everything else, can't get them on, right, can't do anything with them, can't remove anything in those. So we use these. Obviously, paint this for your 5/16 splash quarter. But what happens is when we put this on, you got your two ports usually right next to each other on there. So you put these two on. And then in here, this is fully open. There's no shred or anything in here. I can recover and evacuate through these with those.
We use that.
So what you're gonna do is,
Fully open that.
right, when you get this down, get your hoses hooked up, and then you're gonna screw this all the way in. It's gonna press that Schrader. I was interested because it's like you said, it's not like your little Schrader builder.
Right.
You depress that thing a little bit.
Like a big giant
Right. And yes, you get.
And when they leak bad.
Right.
Well, that's the problem down there. Okay, so when they leak, you're not tightening, you're not doing anything.
And that's it, you're screwed.
So that's the interesting thing, but again, it's like, okay. It's what's everybody's biggest argument about engineers when they're manufacturing products, right? They never think about the service guys, they just don't, they're not, this machine is so good, it'll never need to be serviced, right? So, I hate to say it, that's kind of a lot of times what they gotta think. So what that's gonna do is it's gonna open up that Schrader to its maximum capacity, and you'll be able to recover through it,
Because I cut them out,
and you can evacuate through it. Yeah,
because I haven't leaked.
You don't remove the Schrader?
not on those, you can't on those. Every other system with your regular Schrader in there, you can.
What's the special tool to take the whole thing out?
Probably need a couple of.
That's a great question.
I've never spent money to find out.
Nobody has. That's why I don't have the answer.
Still can't find it forward. You still can't find it forward anyways.
Right.
I'm still waiting kind of.
I think it's got to depress it. It has to, but these work just as well. That's really why we got these. These and for like your quick, you're going to service the system, you check it out, you want to check a quick charge or whatever else. It's a low loss.
What are these right at, or what is it, I'm sorry, retail at? Are they $100 like the core tools?
No, I'm saying, this is.
Also, it's how the whole thing. Tell you what it is, but.
Yeah, if you want to do that.
But that's also your alternative. Like in my house, I have a 4-ton root system, right? We did on it 13 years ago. So when we went to pull a vacuum on it, I could only get onto one port because the other port had a metal, yeah, and you can't move it. Those are also good for those applications. If you still want to pull from both sides, you can pop one of those on. And if you need to, you can actually take a core removal tool from that and hook up to there.
So that would work on a regular Schrader too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you got your black body, which is a 1/4 inch, and then you got your paint, which is 5/16. All right, so Schrader's removed. Now, normally what we're gonna do is, they're gonna hook up those 2 quarter-inch hoses up to a manifold. So again, like you said before, quickest path between point A and point B is what? A straight line, right? So we're getting rid of manifolds. One time we're gonna use a manifold from here on out, charging, whatever, it's just charging, that's it. Digital, it's analog, whatever, charging, okay? Plus, you're gonna keep them for a lot longer that way, because you're not running all that crap refrigerant through the recovery process, and we're not running a bunch of crap through it when we're pulling it back, and they all leak. 99% of the time you're pulling back, and it's not. Let's say 99% of the time, we'll say a majority of the time, it's not because it's the system's leaking, it's your stuff that's leaking, right? It's a hose. Kids know we can get down to 300 microns, whatever it is, you just walk by, go raise the air, and that thing kicks up 50 points. These manifolds, and I'll get into that a little bit more, but they're not rated, they're not supposed to be for vacuum. That's why I was about to say, it's a company I represented, beginning of my days as a representative, a very good company. They had a digital manifold, one of the first 3-port, and it was excellent. It's wonderful. I still think it's one of the best ones out there today. They took that when I made a 4-port, they set the micron gauge into it. And I said, not pushing this, I won't do it. Because what I would do is about 6 months after I have somebody call me out in the field, say, hey man, I've been 6 months, I got oil squirting out the knobs. Question I asked is pull it back into it. Yeah, well, that's why. Now I'll hit that a little bit more and get to that. So Schrader's out. I've got 3/8 hoses. So my red and blue, so we're going 1/4 inch to 2 3/8, right? But normally, what are your 3/8 connections on your 3/8 hoses?
Quarter on one end and 3/8 on the other.
Good. All right, we're already ahead of the game. A lot of times with 3/8 hoses, 3/8 half-inch shows half-inch, but that's where we first came out with this saying, okay, we got 3/8 hose, 1/4 inch connection to 3/8. This is your new recovery manifold. All right, these are what we call it speed wise. I've got 1 core covered, which is this one. I've got 2 for vacuum. Talk about when we get over there. So this now, you see how I have this hooked up, right? It's technically not 100% correct. I'm trying to show it for however you guys want to do it out in the field. There's one thing missing from this process. What would that be?
String that it's supposed to be.
Filter dryer, right? We're always going to recommend having a filter dryer on. So the kit that comes together, we've got a 3/8 hose about this long with a curved fitting on it. It'll fit up into here. That hose comes off, hook your filter dryer up there, and then this technically would hook up to your filter dryer.
So that 1/4 inch is not a restriction, the 1/4 inch is okay like that?
Yes. Now, obviously, we'd love to have, which
Yeah,
part of the
these
system,
3/8
3/8 ports
on
on
everything.
everything. They're all, a lot of them are designed with 1/4 inch. You can work on bigger chillers, right? You have some bigger valves on there. But most of the time we'll work with 1/4 inch. So that's pretty much what we have to work with then. What you're doing is you're doubling, obviously, the amount of flow you can pull through this hose, right? We're getting rid of that Schrader, so now I'm increasing flow dramatically. Now, again, like I said, if you're working on a larger system, you want to use half-inch hoses on recovery, one coming in, one going out, fine, go for it. This machine can handle it, no problems whatsoever. Actually, this thing will probably work a lot better with a larger hose because it's not fighting. These things are trying to pump so much, you can't physically pull them through 1/4 inch hoses and manifolds, everything else. That's where you get the banging, you get the throttling, you get, all, it's shaking all over the place, sound like something's gonna blow up on it, right? That's why it's fighting, can't get what it wants.
So throttling will just make it worse, wouldn't it?
No, see, what would happen is when we're throttling like this Promax machine,
Now you're flashing it back to vapors, there's something liquid in it.
true, but you're also slowing the whole process down. So this machine, right, kind of matching the performance of the machine with what you're getting out of the system. What I'm trying to tell you is, I want you to pull as quickly as possible and get as much out of there as possible, right? So if I increase my hose sizes, I know I can get the volume out of the system. It's gonna match with this.
Just let it rock and roll.
Yes, let it go. I've been,
So if you're not using the manifold, though, you still want to have, like, say you're pulling out of a larger chiller or something. You still got to go back to the original training, is you pull liquid first, then start pulling vapor. You start pulling them both back together, now you're putting mix to that machine. So you want to pull straight liquid first, you can leave the vapor one shut off, and then you start coming down, and then absolutely add it. So it's pulling from two directions.
yes, and I mean, you got push-pull, applications and so on and so forth. In all the handbooks or all the user manuals, we have guides for every type of setup that you're looking to do. And it can handle it. It's not a problem. A lot of times the guys are saying it's like, man, I'm gonna go buy one of those high rate, liquid recovery machines that are, $4,000, whatever.
Plenty.
They're fast, but
You
these,
got a lot of junk you got to get off your truck and bring it in. Well, that thing.
most people aren't using these. Once we get them to speed this up and use them correctly, for one, this machine's gonna last right? So it's not fighting itself, it's doing what it's intended to do. Two, once we start realizing what the capacity of this machine can be, that kind of goes away. So now we got from the piece of equipment into the recovery machine, right? So on the opposite side, we're coming out the output. Over here, I got another 3/8 hose, but this one's quarter to quarter. So the yellow hose is quarter connection, quarter connection. So 3/8 hose, right? So now I got 3/8 throughout the whole process. Yeah, I'm pulling some quarter connections. But when we hook up to the cylinder, and this is how we're recommending, right? So most people are taught to hook up to one port of the cylinder. Liquid. When you hook up to the liquid port, what are you going to before you hit the bottom of the tank? Two, the quarter dip tube, right? The quarters fit in there and the quarters dip tube, again, another restriction point. So what we recommend is hook up to the vapor port, start with the tank flipped upside down. Because now what you're doing is you're bypassing the quarters dip tube, right?
You're letting liquid flow up from the bottom.
Putting that liquid right from the bottom. So then when you get through liquid, you put the tank right side up, right? Then you put the vapor right at the top, you're bypassing that quarters dip tube all the way through.
Now the weight of the hose is added to it because it's connected to the top, so depending on the size of the system, it will probably keep it stable.
And that's the thing, that's what guys ask, well, how do you know? Scale. We do have a very accurate scale that's coming out, by the way. We've actually got two coming out. We got one that's gonna be 120. Got another one's gonna be 260. You can actually take the legs of a screw, put them on the edge of it, like the head of the screw off the edge, put the leg on one side, and actually start to register. It's pretty impressive. So what that's gonna do is, again, we're opening everything up, right? Allowing this machine to do what it wants to. Because going back to it, why do we create heat on the tank? Heat's created from what? Pressure. Well, we're creating back pressure a lot of times. We're creating that with this machine because it's working so hard. Try to pull from small hoses, pressure translates into heat in itself. So what you're gonna see along this process is it's gonna move a lot faster, tanks can stay a lot cooler. Now you're gonna get some instances, you're up on a rooftop, black rooftop, whatever else, it's 120, 130, 140 degrees up there. And things are gonna get hot. Two things we recommend is one, as I said before, a 700 CFM fan. Fan, so the tank right behind the unit will help subcool, pull some heat off of it. That makes a big difference. The other way is I wouldn't worry about the ice and everything. Just take a towel, right? A wet towel, throw it over the top of the tank, and then put this at it, and that'll help out a ton. It's more of a pain in the butt trying to get the ice in the bucket, and everything else up there, right? One of the big things that really drove me crazy was there's a manufacturer out there. They're going to use that.
Yeah, what do you think about that?
Oh,
It's so cool.
there's a reason it came out. There's a reason. It's, that same brand. When they came out with that cover machine, that actually looked like a vacuum pump. I'll be honest, it was fast. It was a fast machine. But the problem was, all it was a pump. And no fan on it whatsoever. It was just a straight pump. So they were burning up real quick. So what did they do? They came out with that thing. I was calling it, looks like a thermonuclear device. They came out with that, put it in after the machine to kind of slow things down and cool it off, right? It's kind of a band-aid for that. I have some guys that tell me they use it for this, but the thing is they're not using the processes we're discussing now. They're still using the quarter hoses and all that, getting a lot of heat. So they use that and say, oh yeah, it works perfectly. Cools it down, tank gets hot.
So with the 3/8 hoses, like you're saying, on a 150-degree roof, do I need that or am I gonna be fine?
You should,
Am I gonna be able to pump 410 into one tank?
should be fine.
So it's gonna be ambient.
There's
That's
gonna
gonna
be,
take it down to the ambient.
there's gonna be some issues. There's gonna be some issues when you get out there, depending on the heat, and everything else, that you're gonna need to take those extreme issues, whether it's ice in a bucket or whatever else it is to keep that tank cool. I'm gonna take care of about 85% of your issues. This process. There's gonna be some times you get out there. Environmentally, it's just gonna get hot, right? The problem with that one is we just got done talking about quarter hoses, right? So what it does is it technically slows down the process because what you've got inside that 16 feet were quarter copper. So I've got quarter hose coming out. A lot of people would do this. You guys sound like I'm using 3/8 hoses, bigger hoses. You're using a quarter out over to that subcooler. It's going in 16 foot worth of quarter copper that's cooled off, right? Then it's coming out again, going through another quarter hose into the cylinder. So it's slowing the whole process down, which technically it'll help it down. But I don't think it's gonna speed things up very much. What I'm saying is if you try this process out, right? see what it does for you. I think it'll take care of all those issues.
Well, you know, that little sub cooler, you know, that's nice. But I tried hooking one of them up to a big chiller one time, it doesn't work out so well, so you gotta make one out of 3/4.
Exactly.
Or excuse me, 3/8. So I
3/8.
have 3/8 roll in a bucket, you know,
So it's
5 pound refrigerant, but. You know, that,
You're gonna 3/8, you're not in here low. You're still cooling the process off.
If your job was to go from machine to machine, week 2 or 3 machines a day, 5 days a week, yeah, you probably could come up with custom stuff.
well, you start getting over 100 ton. The
Yeah.
reason I was asking you about that restriction is. You know, you'd like to charge 1,000 ton with 125 pound bottles. But what if they had a leak that was insurance and they didn't want to pay the rental on the bottles, so they got 88 fucking jugs. Right, of 134.8, you gotta pump them into the unit,
Right.
okay?
Right.
That's why I'm asking, because there's a reason for that.
So when we first brought these out, I think it was like 2000.
Or if it's freezing outside, you can't get the 134 to go into the medical chiller and you gotta pump it in.
Yeah. I mean, you're just gonna have environmental conditions that not everybody can, you're gonna run into your issues. So it's like I had a call for, what is it, 123? Low pressure refrigerant, asking if they could use this on.
Can you?
So. Let's turn this on for a second. We don't have it as one of our recommended. refrigerants. You go in there and say, all of the refrigerants we can handle.
Right.
It's not gonna be listed on. Because it's the opposite of everything else, right? You have to keep it below a certain temperature. I'm correct in saying this. Below a certain
80 degrees,
temperature
I believe.
before, right? So. It's almost the opposite of what we're saying now. It's
If
like,
you hit any hot parts in there,
right,
it's gonna flash.
right. So that's where, yes, we can.
Yeah, a lot of things.
There- well-
Shoot
That's exactly what I relayed to the customer. I got it approved by Apple. You can do this as long as you do this.
But you can use it,
Not
you
recommended.
don't need to use that, you can use this, you can just use a transfer pump, you can use a lot of things, you don't have to trash your recovery machine, it's just,
That's what they wanted to do.
that's what those larger carts, cause I have one of those. It's just a piston in there, I mean, it's just a transfer pump, big ass transfer pump.
Yep, so, as I said. This thing can pull a lot of refrigerant, let it ready. Just give it the capability to do so, right? Open up, give it more flow, and it's gonna last you a lot longer too. You're not gonna run into as many issues. Now, there are a couple maintenance things on this. You can pretty much fix everything inside the system for this unit yourself, all right? Now, technically, what that's gonna do is, if you do have an A12 certification, right? That's not necessarily going to be A12 certified anymore because it's been opened up, technically, right? That's why we do recommend certified repairs, but. Pretty much what you're looking for is, let's see. Piston seals, right? Or ball valve seals. Those are the two main things that you're gonna be checking. That's what we're saying. Simple bench test on this. You have one of these, you want to bench test to see how the performance is going, it's nice and easy. All you do, don't have anything hooked up to it, plug it in, all right? Turn it on, open your input, close your output, time how long it takes to cut off. Every one of these machines is set at 500 PSI, shut off.
No, I think it's like 5 or 6.
550. When it hits 550, shut it down. So you want to time how long it takes from when you turn it on to when it shuts off. A brand new unit ever been used should take about 10 to 15 seconds. It's gonna shut down.
What kind of refrigerant are we doing this with?
No, this is just a bench test. This is when you're in the office or whatever else.
Air,
Just air, yep, absolutely. So turn it on, time how long it takes to shut off or hit that 550. Okay. Usually anything under 30 seconds, you're okay. It starts, going up minute and a half and it shuts off, okay, you can still use it, but there's some repairs you need to make. Sometimes it's not going to shut off. And 9 out of 10 times what it is just your ball valve seals inside here. So you're gonna pop these two off, pop these connection fittings off, and you can buy a ball valve seal and replace it yourself. The second thing is your pistons. 9 out of 10 times you'll know when you need to change your piston seals is when underneath, see oil along here, or if you're doing a big job, you see a little oil down the bottom. Because what's happening is your piston seals are pouring down, you're getting oil and everything else coming past the pistons, it's dropping down. Now, before it all went through the crankcase. So now it comes around the crankcase and it'll come out down the bottom. That's it. sure sign that you need to be pushing this. Now, can you do that? Yes, you can. We sell piston seal kits. I'm going to say this, any of you call me screaming with some choice words up and down that, this isn't working. If you have a red fan, so an older model, what you want to do is turn it over on its side. You're going to do side by side. Don't take that case all the way off. To take it 45 minutes to fix a machine, it's going to take about 3 or 4 hours to get the case back. Phillips head screwdriver, okay, 9/16 wrench. We took this, went like this, and slid this down. That's what you're going to see. Okay, so you're going to see this over here. Allen wrench, pop this off, 9/16 wrench. You can pop off your 2 hoses here, pull this off. On the inside, you're going to see some gaskets and seals, and a it almost looks like a Yahtzee piece, little piston in there. And then you can take a pick and you can pop off these 2 seals of piston, replace those, replace everything on the inside, put this back on. And then what you're going to do is you take this case, this side, and you slide it back on. Then you're going to flip it over again. And the same thing to this side, just taking this side off. The see under here is a spline, right? It's like a track that both of these things get on. If you take it all apart, I'm telling you, unless you get lucky, it's not going to come back together. I've been sitting on top of these things trying to screw them back together. And if you have a blue fan, that's all been taken care of. So then you can just take the whole thing apart and work on it however you want to. Okay. I think our repairs right now for G5 Twin is $260. So you send it in, we do all the repairs, the upgrades, everything. You get a 90-day warranty after that, and it's A12 certified. So it's up to you, and we do a rate pace. It's not like it's far away by any means. Another thing, and this is good for any recovery machine that's out there. Same thing with that bench test, good for any recovery machine that's out there. Right. Little maintenance tip for you. Every once in a while, especially if you've been working on a nasty system burning out, how many times you go work on a system and the last guy on it before you left a sticker on it telling you everything that was in there. Right. So dye, sealing, all that stuff.
Hickory bond.
We work a lot with like auto scrap yards, right? We bring the cars in, they'll bring the fridges and everything else. They use these, they pull them out in the cart, they just hook them up to these cars and go. I would say the majority of cars all have dyed in refrigerating systems. Because again, they're not stationary systems, right? It's a vehicle, it's moving around all over the place. So they put dye in them. So they go underneath, you can give them the flashlight, you can see exactly where you're having the issues and where it's coming out, right? The other thing is you've got rubber material in automotive, you've also got metal in automotive. So they put leak sealants in there that you use for both. It's like a swelling agent for the rubber hoses, and it's a leak sealant for the metal hoses, for the tubing. You're getting all that crap in here, right? And that's another thing as we talk about the gauges. All that stuff is getting in your gauges too. Why gauges don't last. So all you need to do, I would recommend after every couple of jobs, you do a nasty job, take some vacuum pump. All vacuum pump oil is a grade of mineral oil. Okay. See the caps on here? Pour some vacuum pump oil on the cap. Take a rag, put it over the output. Okay. And then turn it on. Take that cap and tap some vacuum pump oil. Let's suck it up in there. It's going to take a couple minutes to run through, and it'll kick out all the crap on the other end and start seeing it in the rag. Helps you clean out the whole inside of that recovery machine. It's going to help a lot of the gaskets and seals and things like that too.
That brings me to my next question. So how does the magic work? Those are reciprocating pistons, right? Put liquid into the center. How does the how fast that piston going, and how come it doesn't scramble like a regular refrigerator compressor would when it gets oil? Like you're pumping oil into there now, that's really not going to compress either. How does the valving in there work? Is it just check valves?
Yes. So on the inside, what I told you is like a little Yahtzee piece on the inside of here. I wish I could pull this off. I don't know if they have it in there or not. But you can look at the parts breakdown. It's a little thin. It moves
So
in
the
the
size of the piston and the horsepower rating and everything else is just enough. So even if you fill that cylinder chock box with oil, that thing's just going to
It could help.
push it out the outer check valve.
Yeah.
That makes
It again, a lot of automotive guys out there, when they take this thing apart, they see a lot of things in there that they recognize. That's not me. I mean, my first vehicle was a 77 Jeep Cherokee. I drove until I was 25, so I got my fair share of starter motors and spark plugs and distributor cabs and all that good stuff. When you talk about the actual motor workings, a lot of guys tell me Mazdas. This is kind of like a Mazda setup.
yeah,
Yeah. So Again, that's above my pay grade, but a lot of guys see those.
Is it?
Oh, wait, now.
But yeah, again, going into, so to finish up on the recovery side of things, R32, 5, 454 being 5.
What about lack of use? Say. I've been riding around in my van for years.
Mhm.
Haven't used it.
Okay.
Don't worry about it.
What I recommend is, that little vacuum pump thing, turn it on, just get some of that through there. Just kind of go there, lubricate everything, but yeah, no problems whatsoever.
I put a Y on the discharge of the recovery machine.
Never had that question asked before.
Because some of us move a lot and that thing's like, what, 6 pounds a minute or some shit?
Yeah,
So if I want to do 2 tanks because they're getting hot, because you can use my little 1/4 inch subcooler.
that's a great question, I'll find out.
You gotta be careful when you're approaching the 80% unless you got 2 stainless too.
Still drive behind him.
Yeah.
It's a good question. When we started off, I was gonna get into this, we had a distributor down in this.
Anything to reduce the pressure on the outlet side's gotta be okay. I mean, let's say.
Oh, yeah.
But tank
It
and.
doesn't need a certain amount of back pressure if you opened it up.
Yeah.
You might be going to 200-pound bottles. I mean,
We used to tell guys, I wanna push more out of the system than bring it into it all if I can. So even if you went with a bigger hose on your output, half-inch hose on your output over your cylinder, that might help out too. We used to have. Still got pictures of somewhere, right on the Avcon website. There was one guy, distributors used to do their own reclaim. Or it was more not reclaim, it was consolidation.
Right, I'm saying.
So you guys are bringing all your, 22 and everything else, they'd have 15 cylinders full of recovered R22. What they would do is they'd take one of these machines, build a big copper manifold, right, and you hook up 10 cylinders to it.
There's a lot of refrigerant pounds in there.
Oh, yeah, and what they would do is they would use
use
this to pull out all 10 of those to a manifold and then put it into a big 125 pounder or whatever they take.
So I've used one of these and 3 50-pound recovery cylinders to cascade through
Mhm.
because the 1,000-pound chiller was in such a vacuum when I went to charge it. If I just opened up a jug, it would freeze it immediately. So I had to flash it, right? Cascade it through, push it through, and then still have a heat gun on the end to warm it up to dump it into that chiller because that barrel's so large. So I can see them cascading. I pump into multiple tanks. If I don't want to carry one 80% charge, whatever, I'd rather put 250s up there as halves, so
If there's,
I do it all the time.
if there's one machine in this weight class that can do it, it's this. It's just that you really gotta get some issues. Again, I'm biased, but everybody else is still using old technology. What they've done is they've taken those single cylinder pistons with the rock arm wrist pins and they put 2 of them in there. There's still an open crank and it's got 2 of the same old pistons working with each other. There's one out there, I think it's got 4 in it. We have some, these machines overseas that I can't really get into, that are available in the US that.
Italian 12-cylinder,
Does
like a Ferrari.
I don't know what you're talking about.
does anybody here have that backpack kit that comes with the hoses and all that? Does anybody use that?
Backpack.
Yeah, it all comes in a backpack.
Speed kit, we have a recovery, speed kit, speed kit ours for
If
recovery.
you see that one time, you'll be a believer. I seen a dude pull a vacuum down in like 30 minutes.
Well, we have one for recovery too, which is so, just a real recovery. So what it is you get the 2 or your 3/4 inch or 3/8 ounces, right? Red and blue. Yellow.
Yes.
You get 2 of the 5/16, 2 of the 1/4 inch. This speed wide in the bag. That's everything we need recovery. Because then you have it. I think we also did that blue hose I was telling you about that hooks up to the filter dryer, so you get that in there too.
I bought my first one from Rudy.
Yeah.
I got my hand slapped for bottling that machine too.
Rudy was he was one of my great friends.
So there's plans for like a water injection of ever cooling.
He's got a lot of stuff on the board right now. He's got a lot of stuff that's coming out this
See,
year.
I can see Rick on his hands and knees blowing on it.
Question, if that's too big for a small system, that you need a smaller one for like small residential stuff, is it better?
Well, that's
Ask a second.
a great question. That's what I'm gonna get into with this.
Okay.
It's sizing up your equipment with the right pump. A lot of people are just going overkill. It's filter pumps and so on and so forth. I'll explain all of that.
Okay.
Question. All right, so any other questions on recovery? Right. Restrictions, get strainers out, bigger hoses, no manifold, Bigger hose over the cylinder, hook up your vapor, start with tanks turned upside down, right? Get your liquid, flip it right side up. It's gonna take care of vibrations. When you can, use a big torpedo, that's make sure, you know.
That's what I'm saying.
Although I think
Vapor.
they have, like rack systems, you can actually do that. You put a torpedo in there and you can flip it, so.
I just kick it on its side, tip it up a little bit.
All right, well, if you think of anything else, feel free to throw it out here. So evacuation is. I get pretty passionate about this. Usually when I do trainings on evacuation, I get a lot of service guys, which makes sense. But really, I think the most important place this needs to be done is on conditioning system. Because that's where everything starts. I'm gonna throw a little bit of my opinions in there about refrigerants along the way. Again, they're just my opinions. Why do we pull it back on the system?
Moisture.
I can, it's moisture. We'll need the moisture, right? Atmosphere, all that stuff. Because what happens when we mix moisture in? It passes. And really, once it happens, you don't really stop it. You don't just stop forming carry corrosion. You know, this is a conversation I have with Bergen too. It was, once it happens, I mean, technically, you should have to take line sets out and everything else, technically. In a perfect world. We have to get that moisture out of there because that's just starting the system off and it's just gonna go like this. The other thing that I always bring up is you talk about 410 and R22 and why this is so important. Our mantra is clean, dry, and tight. Cleaner, drier, and tighter system is, right? Now, you got a lot of differences between the 22 and the 410A. That's why I think this new shift to 454B isn't going to be that bad. We're throwing that mildly flammable thing on there, and I get that whole scenario. But when you're talking about 410A and 454, they're very similar. They're both what oils? Both POE, right? The pressures are very, very similar. It's not much different than what you were doing when you're talking about working. When we went from 22 to 410A, that was a big difference. Because R22 is water mineral, right? Then you go to POE. You had a lot more forgiveness with 12, 22. I mean, how did you flush out a 12 system?
Little 11.
You know, or just window comes out the other end. Now I get it. It's more. I'm not a scientist. I'm not an EPA certified person. I get it. You know, you get the GWPs, global warming potentials, and all this stuff. These refrigerants. The lower the better, right? 22 is really bad, and 12 is really bad. So I understand that. But when we talk about ease of use, right? It took a big turn for the worse when we went to 410A. And I look at it going, okay, this is again my person. Okay, 22 is worse for the environment, but we didn't have so many leaks, right? We didn't have many system issues. So maybe we were leaking 10 or 20% compared to 410A that we're having issues with now. So are we making up for volume with 410A being leaked out in the atmosphere versus, you know,
Just the 410A came out, I know, shortly after all the global warming stuff. So I think you just perceived when R22 leaked a lot, but it was less than $1 a pound.
right?
So people would just go throw, 30 pounder, 2 30 pounders a year. Yeah. Yeah, I can't tell you how many counts.
Oh, I
I
agree.
got, I fixed that leak and moneymaker just went up by 8.
But so here's the thing though, with 410A, you got POE oil, right? The differences between the characteristics between POE oil and mineral oil, the differences is surface tension. Okay. When you got into mineral oil R22 systems, you could actually pull the moisture out of the oil through vacuum. Right? 410A, it's like taking saran wrap over the surface and trying to pull what you can't. Once it gets in there, it ain't coming out.
So what do you gotta do?
Pull a perfect vacuum.
How do you get the refrigerant out of the oil?
Yeah, it's in there.
How do you do it?
They told us all this when they went to 410.
Oh, no. Kenny knows. What do you gotta do? You gotta turn your crankcase heater on. You gotta smack it on that rubber mallet.
Right.
You gotta heat it up.
But I'm talking about the actual moistures. So moisture, when it works with POE oil, we're creating acid, sludge, whatever it may be. I think, and again, when we had those, what was that stuff you were using for the Calgon, that additive that you put in a certain
Acid away.
it was something else, man. You gave like a gun to put it in there. It's supposedly like freezing up TXVs and everything else, and it was supposed to loosen stuff up.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? And again, I don't know this for sure. I didn't do any scientific tests on there, but I'm thinking a lot of it was we weren't using the evacuation processes correctly in volcanic systems. And you were creating a lot of sludge, you're creating a lot of acid, you're creating a lot of issues on the inside. Now, here's the interesting thing. This is where I'm gonna go to leaks. So volcanic systems start coming out. They started making coils out of what? Plastic.
Aluminum.
All right, aluminum. Then they started making them out of aluminum. Then what do they start making?
Tiny little.
Thinner and thinner and thinner, microchannel, so on and so forth, right? So if we're not pulling a proper vacuum of the system, I got acid running on the inside of the system. What's it doing? It's just eating away at the
Waxing the
system.
system.
Now let's take it one step further. What are guys cleaning coils?
The pig stuff was
Straight water only.
If it foams, it's not good, right? There's two, and I have no affiliation with them whatsoever. So I'm not, in the bag for either one. But you've got New Calgun's, it's got its tri-power. That triple D, and that one, New Calgun's is tri-power, and Versatex is triple D. Those are the two I write.
because the triple D, no PPE.
Right, it's all it is a detergent, a deodorant, and a degreaser. The thing is, you're so used to things foaming up, right? You feel like it's cleaning, and then you rinse it off, it's all nice and shiny, right? Well, look at what that foaming actually is. I used to talk to guys all the time, like, well, what do you think the foaming, oh, it's adding with the dirt, the grease, everything. But no, you're literally etching the aluminum off the coil.
Oh.
They say an average of 3 uses of a foaming coil cleaner, you beat 7 to 10% of the mass of that coil.
Great for cleaning a motorcycle.
Again, then you spray it off, it's all nice and shiny. Come back the next day and see what it looks like. It oxidizes overnight and then it looks like crap. Is it cleaning it? Yeah. What I'm trying to stress is we're eating it out from the inside. Now we're eating it from the outside. And we're getting thinner and thinner and thinner. Yeah, we're gonna have things. It's gonna happen before it can. So that's again, I just try to stress that. So evacuation. Again, put this path between point A and point B is a straight line. I'm gonna stress it. It's even more important on this side of things, and the evacuation side is not having that manifold. That manifold is the reason why you're taking as much time as you're taking, okay? I mean, yes, whenever you're going out to do a job, you check your hoses, make sure you got your gaskets in there, right? Get your everything in there. Because that could be a very easy one too, and 9 to 10 times. If it's not the system, you're working against yourself, right? Your hose could be bad, your manifold. I'm telling you right now, who has a vacuum rated manifold? Don't answer. There's no such thing, right? If manifolds are supposed to be
It's just
used,
O-ring sitting in a groove that relies on the pressure to make it seal. When you pull it
Pressure.
back,
pressure, right, exactly. So going along those lines, quarter-inch hoses, we've already said they're charging hoses, correct? So when you're going to buy a new set of hoses, and you're reading that, writing on the hose, what are you looking for? See how good that hose is.
800 PSI rating, right?
Right, the bigger the burst rating and the pressure rating, the better the hose is going, right? Well, what is that telling you? It's telling you that
the smaller the hose, smaller diameter can handle higher pressure.
they're technically called off-gassing or out-gassing hoses.
Oh,
Right.
Yeah.
So why would I be pulling the vacuum with a permeable hose, right? So it can off-gas. You ever notice when those hoses start to go bad, they don't blow up on you? That's probably happened before, but they crack, spring leak, right? Well, if
You get super flexible.
well, they've got perforations in it to do that. That's what they're meant to do. So they spring a leak like that, you're putting a vacuum through it, what do you think's happening?
Yeah, full shot.
Right, well, you're gonna collapse the hose for one, right? Because it opens up. So you're collapsing that hose, that's quarter-inch, you're making it worse. And two, you're just pulling an atmosphere through that hose through the permeability of it, okay? So those are never meant for vacuum, ever. I don't even recommend 3/8 hoses for vacuum. It's kind of pointless.
Say that again,
I don't even recommend 3/8 hoses for vacuum. It's kind of pointless.
vacuum hoses?
Right. We have them. I mean, all of our hoses are vacuum rated, but it's pointless to use a 3/8 hose on vacuum. It really is. And I'll explain that. So rule of thumb, okay, 1/2 inch hose, 1/2 inch hose, right, this here. 1/2 inch hose is equivalent to 3 CFM. So if you remember that, that's gonna be perfect for you. So if I want to get 100% out of my pump, I've got 1/2 inch hose, what size pump do I need? Let's see that, right? If I've got a 5 or 6, how many 1/2 inch hoses do I need? Two.
Or 3/4.
This is my argument to say, okay, this is an 8 CFM pump, right? There's no Do I want people to buy this? Yes, I do. But there's really no, if you're working on 2-port systems, there's no sense in this. Because with only 2 hoses, I can't get more than 6 CFM out. So what's the point of getting anything over a 6? Mainly the residential contractors. I go in there and I said, you should never be buying anything over a 6. Like, well, yours isn't a 6. I said, I get it. But you really, and really the brands out there, vacuum pumps are vacuum, 2-stage rotary vanes. They're all good pumps for the most part. Some of them have more features and things like that on them. You go to JB, they're monsters. You go to Yellow Jacket, they're monsters. But internally, you have the same thing, right? They're 2-stage rotary vanes. You're buying them based off of CFM. I was getting one guy who got the 10 to 12, right? And we start talking about
drive 15.
we start talking about quarter-inch hoses. Now, here's the interesting thing. Gotta shuttle the target real quick, but talk about quarter-inch hoses. The most you can physically pull through a quarter-inch hose vacuum, the most, 0.8 CFM per hose.
Oh, sure.
So now if I'm using 2 quarter-inch hoses, right? Assuming I got my shredders moved, using 2 quarter-inch hoses, it doesn't matter if I have 10 CFM pump or a 3 CFM pump, I'm only getting 1.6 CFM out of that setup. So I'm doing a couple things. One is I'm going really slow, right? 2, say I have a 10 CFM pump on there, I'm getting 1.6 CFM. What am I doing to my pump? How am I turning on? Killing it. That's one of the main reasons why guys call certain pumps throwaways. I have guys that are JB fans, I have guys that are Avion fans, I have guys that are Cool Tech fans, whatever it is. It's the one that they didn't experience that with. So even if you're using a 3 CFM pump with that setup, you're only getting 50% of what's capable of that 3 CFM pump, since it's at 1.6 CFM. Now, that's assuming that you remove those shredders. With the shredders in there, the most you can physically pull for a quarter-inch hose is 0.2 CFM. That's it. Again, it's a 3, 10, 12, belt drive, doesn't matter. I was at a, was it an all of these? It's like 10 years ago, St. Joe, Michigan. And I didn't even know what kind of system it was. It's for all the freezers, a beautiful system, all controls on and everything else.
Yeah, but that's right.
It was when we came out with our first set of gauges for grabbing. They wanted to check them out, so we were trying the system. So I walk in, and I'm like, well, man, it's a beautiful job, beautiful setup, everything else. I see this Wells belt drive sitting in the back. And it's got the manifold up here, it comes across, it's got a quarter-inch taps on it. I asked him, so what would you guys pull down with? Like that dude right there. I said, man, it must have gone pretty quick. I said, no, it took us 3 days. They used 4 quarter-inch hoses on that Welsh belt drive. They didn't know any different. You know, that's what everybody's been doing. With the shredders done. So technically, they weren't even getting 1 CFM out of the 25 CFM Welsh belt drive. So when we sit there and say on the evacuation procedure, the processes, I can take you from 2 days to 3 hours. It's not a joke. It's the process. But I can do that with a JB pump. I can do that with a Yellow J. It doesn't matter what pumps out. Some are built better than others, but they're all going to work the same for you. What I'm trying to do is explain to you to buy a pump, but make sure you're buying the accessories to work with that pump, right? So if you're working on a large chiller, right? I was Rudy and I a long time ago, we were in Indianapolis at a middle school. So we had 2 of these pumps. He was on one side of the system, he had 2 hoses hooked up to it, and I was on the other side with 3 hoses. We used to have our old manifold. It was a 1/2-inch bore with red and blue knobs on it. So it was full flow. So I had 3 hoses hooked up on the other side, he had 2 hoses hooked up, and we were pulling, you know, vacuums from both sides. And so what was it, 600 ton of equipment, I believe it was, 600 water, but I can't. When we get through about 3 hours, and it gets to, or no, it wasn't, I can't remember the time. It was like, it got down to like 60,000 microns, 66,000 microns. So mine was on the low side, mine was at 66, his was at like 72, you know, different, you know, readings on there, and it would move. It just stopped right. I'm going, what the heck? I'm pulling on all my hoses, I'm checking, you know, pulling vacuum on the hose. And around the chiller barrel, you got that insulation around it, right? You have the 90-degree fittings. We had core tool on that. So I went up underneath, we went to dinner, we tried everything. It's just one of those, get a walk away and come back. Got under there, pushed up the insulation, I get 3 more twists out of my core tool. And all of a sudden went from 66,000 down to like 700 microns in a heartbeat. But that whole system took us about 4.5 hours. That's with that hiccup.
Once you tightened it, it only took another hour. Yeah.
What's that?
So you were doing anything for 3 hours.
It was still pulling down.
Yeah.
It just, it was weird because the micron gauge is still reading holding, but as soon as I tightened it up, it went, boom. I mean, it dropped dramatically. And that's something I'll talk about micron gauges in a little bit, what you look for those, but. So what you want to do with your vacuum pumps is, again, whatever you're buying, take your CFM and you coordinate it with the input that you're allowed to get into. Right? So 1/2 inch hose equals 3 CFM. So if you get a 5 or 6, you need 2 1/2 inch hoses. When you get into larger systems where you can hook up 3, 4 hoses, right, and chillers and things like that, that's when you go for a bigger pump. Get 8 CFM out of this, I need 3 1/2 inch hoses, right? So 3-port system, 4-port system, whatever it may be. The cool thing about this is with our tree up here, I've got 2 3/8 ports right off here. So I can run 2 hoses right off of this straight to my system. That's where these guys come. So this one is a 3/8 down here, so your 3s and 5s. I can put this on
That's
top of
3 by what, quarter?
So this is 3 here, 3/8, 3/8, right? So I can take my 1/2 inch hose, which is 3/8 and a quarter. So 5 CFM or 3 CFM, I put this right on top of 3/8 fitting, right? Because every 5 and below is at least a 3/8 and a quarter. Put this on, I can run 2 1/2 inch hoses right off of here, right to my system, high side, low side. 6 and up are usually 1/2 inch port, 3/8 port, 1/4 inch port, right? So that's where the black body one comes in. This is 1/2 inch here. So technically on this pump as it is, I can put this on top and I can run 4 hoses right off the tree. 2 off of here, 2 off of here. So that way, if I'm working on a chiller, a larger system, whatever, and I've got more ports to hook up to, I'm good to go. Don't need any manifolds or anything like that. So again, you're gonna buy 12 CFM, just know you're gonna have 4 hoses, right? Run to that to make it work at 12 CFM. Again, that's why a lot of these pumps don't last. Because guys using these 4-inch hoses out, whether it's 5 or 6 or 10 or 8 or whatever it is, you're only getting maybe at best 2 CFM out. You're constantly bogging it down. Now, the one question I always get,
Been from 2 and big back.
yeah, that's usually how it is though. I mean, I would have thought the same thing. So again, we said straight line, right? We want a straight line, especially back, getting rid of that. So we recovered a system, still got our cord tool on there, right? Schrader's out. So there's 2 different ways to do this. I tell guys this mainly in the residential field a lot, but you can do a 1 hose setup or you can do a 2 hose setup. Obviously, more hoses you have hooked up, quicker you're pull it back. But say you're working on a 2.5 ton, 3 ton, 4 ton, whatever it is, some residential. Like on my house, again, I couldn't hook up to both ports because I had that metal bar right in front, so I had to pull it from one side of the system. And what happened at my house, this is what's interesting. I don't have proof of this, but I'm deducing. So I had a neighbor 2 houses down, had the same contractor brought in through the builder, right? So he built a year before me and moved in, had the same contract that I had, mine. Same system. So when we were building, I think we started in August, that's September. I can't. They got the framing up, option came in, you know, a week, they had the whole thing framed, amazing. And then started doing all the work on inside. Right before the drywallers came in, you know, HVAC guy came in, ran all my duct work, got everything set up. Got the furnace running so he could keep those drywallers nice and warm, you know, we got it in December and all that, get all that, you know, all the dust and everything else on my system. Yeah, but then for the outdoor system, right? For my AC, he just charged it with nitrogen, let it sit. No big deal. Nobody's gonna be living there and we're not moving until March or something. So time came, he came out, was like, hey, we'll come out, get your charge system up. It's like April, something like that. Be there around 10. I'm not one of those guys that stands over his shoulder and watches everything, unless I'm just interested in learning. But I said, all right, it's kind of what I do. I got all this stuff here. I'm gonna pull the vacuum on my system to make sure I know where it's at. So go out there, be a nice guy. And I go, so again with Rudy, I'd like Rudy my mic, so I didn't have mine. So the person asked, I bring out the pump, I know I can only hook 1 hose up to it. So I'm like, hey, I said, got your micron gauge. I you know, don't have mine. He's like, oh, I thought you were bringing yours. And we didn't even talk about me doing the system left, so he wasn't even going to pull a vacuum on me. I'm like, what? I think the way he was looking at it was, well, he's got nitrogen sitting in there, right? And I don't know what PSI he had it, but it was exactly the same PSI when we came out to do this. So he's looking at it, go, there's no leaks in the system. The first thing I said, you know, there's a difference between positive pressure leaks and negative leaks, right? But so anyway, I had to run up to, I think it was a Johnstone better. And I like literally decided between my 2 mortal enemies, micron gauges. We'll say one was black and silver and like at this size, and one was yellow black, this size. But I went with the yellow and black one. All I can say is this on micron gauge. You ever pull a micron gauge on a 0? Not because you're a super tech. It's not possible, okay? It should not be point down to zero. I did that with the first one. I took it back, brought it all out. We'll just say this, it does 3 lines across the screen, then 2 lines across the screen, then 1 line, and it pops up 2,500, and then go down from there. Figure it out if you'd like to. So I've got a JV one. Pull it down within 3.5 minutes using 1 hose in this vacuum pump. I had it down to 297 microns. 3.5 minutes. Now again, clean system, you know. But it was just about speed. Now, if I would have used 2 hoses, it would have been even quicker. But what happened was, so I knew that I pulled a good vacuum on there. I was there during the charging process. It would charge well. I've never had an issue once with my AC. My neighbor, who had the same guy, same system, went through 4 coils. Finally, after his 4th coil, Ring came out and took care of this whole system. Took out a line, set everything, brand new system. Now, can I say for a fact that I know because of that? No, but I'm pretty sure there was no vacuum. So going back to it. From the system, Schrader's out, straight line, right? System, the pump, okay? Now, what we're doing is, in a vacuum, is we're creating a high pressure area and a low pressure, right? System being high pressure, pump being low pressure. We're trying to track those water molecules, those non-condensables from high pressure to low pressure. So a lot of times I'll say flow, but it's not really about flow, okay?
You're trying to attract all molecules.
Whatever you can get out of the system, right?
Whatever's in there.
The biggest thing to me is moisture. Let's get the moisture out of it. So as we're doing that, guys always ask, well, you're using a 1/2 inch hose, which you're pulling through a quarter inch connection. So why? What's the point? You're still pulling through a quarter inch connection. The analogy I use
Going down a 1/4 inch hallway with 100 people.
Yeah,
You're going through one door and you an auditorium.
right. So the way I put it is, if you're say on the turnpike, got 3 lanes, right? Everybody's about 80 miles an hour, it's half. Well, you got an accident that takes up 2 of those lanes. Okay, what happens to traffic? It backs up to get into 1 lane, right? But once you get past that accident, you got a 1/4 inch hose on the other side, you're in 1 lane, jam the rest of the home. You got a 1/2 inch, opens back up to 3 lanes, you zip down 80 miles an hour. The other way you look at it is when we talk about the whole laws of traction and attracting those molecules down to low pressure. You got a 1/4 inch, you're attracting them through here. Every time those water molecules or the molecules come through, hit the inside of that hose, it might bounce up and down, it might bounce back this way, you're trying to get it down there. A 1/2 inch hose is 16 times faster than a 1/4. So now we're taking that 1/4 inch, and we're moving it to this to pass those same molecules through. So yeah, I got that little fitting here.
Where do you do the doorway?
1/4 inch, right? It makes all the difference in the world. It took a long time for me to understand that, but I tell guys all the time, we have what we call our Mega Basics kit. It's a 1/2 inch hose and a 1/4 inch, right? I said, if you buy this and it doesn't speed you up dramatically, I'll buy it back from you. And in 15, 17 years, I've never had to buy one back. It's just a process. We've been preaching it forever. And again, going back to that the book by Thurman, in that paragraph of back, first paragraph, it said, that was what, 60s?
I think late 50s, early 60s.
It literally says, for the purposes of evacuation, we will not even discuss the use of 1/4 diameter inch hoses. And this is way back then. So the other problem is, we talk about it is these manifolds, as I talked about before. Manifolds are not vacuum rated. Okay, we're using vacuum rated things. All of our hoses are vacuum rated. I do have perforations on these hoses, but these hoses are triple layered. I've got the outside that's rated for pressure. I've got a mesh in the middle, and I've got another on the inside. So these things aren't going to leak. The only way they're going to leak is if you lose one of your gaskets, right?
Like when a micron gauge ain't going down, you got your pockets full of caps and everything else.
So what is the purpose of the micron gauge on a digital set?
It's the same thing as it would be this regular micron, but here's the problem. This is what I'll get to the question. So first off, as I said before, there are no vacuum rated manifolds. No such thing as a vacuum rated manifold. Digital, analog, doesn't matter. They're not vacuum rated. Second of all, they're, like we talked about before, they're dealing with pressure, right? So the gaskets are designed to do pressure. And what would happen is these guys, I had contractors that worked out in Indiana for a few years. They bought that 4-port with a micron gauge and they're using it for vacuum. So what would happen is, again, 6 months, 8 months down the road, the callers are, man, I bought these things off. I got oil squirting out the knobs. First question to ask is, okay, are you pulling the vacuum? Yeah. Well, what do we do is, everybody's guilty of this. Everybody, it's whether it's digital or if it's analog. You're pulling a vacuum, right? You can't get it to hold. So it's the first thing you reach for outside of turning the pump back on.
Channel locks.
I've seen those marks on my hoses before.
Hell, yeah.
You're reaching for those manifolds, right? If it's the digitals, you're cranking down those. If it's analogs, you're cranking down these. You work so hard to get down to that 500 or 300, whatever else, it's not staying, right? So you're grabbing whatever you can, you're cranking down these things, you're cranking down whatever you can. A lot of times it's that manifold, especially on those $500 digitals, guys, they're still cranking those things down to get it to hold. They're not vacuum rated, they're going to leak. So what happens is that micron gauge is in there. Think about everything that can affect that micron gauge being inside the manifold, right? I've got these connection points. I've got the connection points of the system. I've got my core tools. I've got the connections at my manifold, right? I've got the knobs, and all those things can have a potential leak on. And we know how sensitive micron gauges are, right? Because before you just walk past it, there's a little breeze and kicks up pivot points. Okay. So that's what happens is, so this first job, really, you're cranking these things down. All right, so what's that doing to the gaskets and seals to that manifold?
You just imagine it down.
Add on them, cutting them, right, flatten them. So the next time they're gonna use them, what's gonna do even worse? Leak, and they're gonna crank them down even more. Till about 6 months down the road, guess what? You got oil squirting out the knobs, right?
And how many times you can pull a cap off the system and the quarter inch layer looks like it's been chewed on.
Yeah,
How much CFM was the 3/8 hose on the vacuum?
3/8 is about 1.5 to 2. 3/8 hose.
So the half is 3.
Yes.
So to use that pump, I need 2 halves.
Technically, if you wanted to run 100% at 8 CFM, you need 3, right? Technically, that gives you 9 CFM. This is an 8 CFM pump.
But there's a half, 3/8 and a quarter fitting on that.
All the quarters for is when I'm trying to start it up. This has a soft starting torque. Everybody else's is a hard starting torque, right? It's ballast. So when you flip on a different brand, right, hammers real hard. Reason being is you've got your rotary vanes that are sitting down in the sump of just junk. Is I know you guys, every single one of you change your oil after every job, right? Okay. So that rotary vane has to go through, it's gonna chop through that stuff, get it up, get it going, right? Then it heats up. That oil in there kind of softens up, the viscosity loosens up a little bit. That's why they have to have that hard starting torque. For this is a soft starting torque. So if it's this way you would consider our gas ballast is this quarter inch fit. You should open this up a little bit, turn it on. If it's all sealed up, it's gonna sound like a Model T. It's like, you know, it's trying to start. You open this up, a little atmosphere in here, just like a gas ballast, it's gonna fire right up and you seal it. So that's really the only reason I have a full inch.
So how do I hook up enough to get to 8 CFM? 2 halves and 2 3/8? Or just do the wide?
So we do this on top, and then 2
Is
3/8
that half?
bolts. I got a half here, 3/8, 3/8. This is a half right here, which would fit right on top of here. I got 2 more 3/8 ports here.
So
I
that's
can
half.
put up
3/8.
4 half-inch of these half-inch hoses off this setup right here.
So that has 2 3/8 on the
Yep.
bottom.
3/8, 3/8. And 3/8, 3/8 here.
Half to 3/8. Okay.
So this is half, we got a quarter over here, 3/8, 3/8. So technically, I mean, honestly. Yes, you can run 2 half-inch hoses well, and you're gonna do really, really well. I'm just saying for 100% of the use of the machine, you need 3. So technically with that, this is gonna run like a 6, but again, if you've never tried this before, you're using half-inch hoses.
And what do you call that wide, that black wide? What's the name when I look it up?
These are all speed wise. So there's the recovery, they're all speed wise. The gold is for recovery. Silver is 3/8 here for your 5 and below. Then your black one is a half-inch or your 6 and up.
So there are different speed lines there.
Yeah,
By size, color coded by size.
so this is
By
recovery.
size and perfect rules. Probably.
This one's gonna be for 60 FM pumps and up, because it's a half-inch connection. This one's gonna be 5.
You guys sell a nice kit of
Bye.
speed wide.
So in the vacuum speed kit, right, the speed kit V. You get 2 half-inch hoses, 2 of each core tool. And you get one or both of these as well in the kit.
And which is that, their vacuum kit?
Yeah, there's speed kit R for recovery, and speed kit V for back.
And since we came to this class, we gave this one.
I can see if they have something for us.
You did bring Penelon, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah. I don't sell them, it still goes through distribution.
Now, Lisa.
What's that? Yeah. I've been renting to. Oh, 2 questions. I hear you. No,
They're not free,
no.
but damn, they're good.
It's a lower, you know.
So, we talk about half-inch hoses, right? Talk about the quarter-inch connection. 1 hose setup versus a 2. Now, and again, I talked to these mainly in the residential field. Because really, you only have two ports hooked up to, right? High side, low side, for the most part. So I try to explain a one hose setup. And this comes into micron gauge placement. So we're getting rid of that. We don't need that, right? Because really, what does it tell us in the vacuum process anyway? Other than the micron reading.
Well, I only use it to isolate sides or isolate hoses. I can see if the higher the low side floats up or down. I use
So
two micron gauges, one on each side of the system,
Smart.
you know?
But here's, and this is kind of what I try to explain to guys with a micron gauge. So first off, our micron gauge reads max. So right now, this one here is reading 760,000 microns. Okay. And that'll vary where you're at sea level. Take this off.
How's it?
737,000. It actually does.
You walk in and out of a building, check, use it for checking pressure.
Yeah.
Doesn't make difference if she's blonde or brunette.
There was another brand and I had one and it did that and it worked great for a couple of weeks, but all the check valve on it, once it, keep them over pressure on it, it's just a rubber flap and it got dirty. And it never held after that, so I threw it out.
My favorite gauge of all time is thermal analog. I still think those things are amazing. It's just hard to find those. Those are non-nice ones. I've already.
So good.
I will say this, I'm biased. The digital version of that is this. I sell the same, these are cheap, but I sell them like hotcakes. Because normally, guys, you know how it is. You does before you go out and buy this gauge, it doesn't work. Go buy another one, or a different one. This one doesn't
all,
work.
all that with the measured quick. Those are good. You
Well,
want,
that's a good gauge.
you want so many of those today?
Well, that's a good gauge. It's not bad.
I've got two at Lowe's, one on each side.
Yeah, so, but this is kind of how we do. So I said, okay, one hose set. Say hook up to the low side, right? The best position for your micron gauge is off. Well, technically in that setup, the second best place is off. Because again, we have it on our manifold or like something goes along with that, there's a certain pump that they came out with, not them, but associated with that, they had a micron gauge in the back of the pump. There was a little digital micron gauge back here. I thought it was the worst thing ever. What's the point of that? The only reason I thought there could be a purpose for that was if you're changing your oil to see when you put the oil in there, how far the pump can be pulled out to, right? If it's hitting the pump, that's hitting it's 50 microns or whatever else it is. Otherwise, it's completely pointless because your micron gauge is measuring the amount of moisture in the system, right? So I say it's like a gas gauge, right? As you're pulling the moisture out, it's measuring that, and that's why it's going down like a gas gauge. Getting to a certain point is a micron gauge for the layman's terms. So if I've got one hose coming from my pump, say the low side of the system connected to this, right? That's what the side ports for. We're going to take this micron gauge, we're hooking to the port here. So now I'm on the system, right? And when I get down to 500, 400, 300, whatever it is, I'm going to isolate the system. Now only reading the system below it. The second best place to put it with one hose setup. The best place, as you were kind of alluding to, is on the other side of the system. That's where somewhere else first reading. So it's interesting because you can see this too. If you've got two micron gauges, you put one where you've got the hose hooked up, put another one on the other side of the system. Usually, depending on the size of the system, they're going to read off. One on the furthest point might read, well, actually, one of your hoses probably going to read, say, 500, right? You got 500. But the one over here is going to read 800. You have 300 micron difference. Okay. Usually, what happens is not everybody has two micron gauges to try that out. Usually, what happens is when you isolate that system, 500 comes up to 650 and 800 comes down to 650 and equalizes there. System equalizes when you take the vacuum. So usually I tell guys all the time, I said, when you get down to 500, 400, 300, odds are, when does it ever stop? Right? I mean, if you go on the first side, it's gonna get pretty darn close.
But if you stop and they both start going up, whichever one's going up faster is probably closest to the leak. Once you get below 1,000 microns, the molecules that are leaking in,
So if we've talked about this 1/4 inch restriction, all right, in the vacuum, we gotta get the Schrader out because it's such a small hole. All this stuff. You've got the clearance on top of the compressor and you've got your expansion device.
Okay.
You hook up to one on the high side, you still have to pull through either one of those two to get to the other side. Right? If you hook up on the low side, you to the high side. So why would you even do a one hose on the side?
For like my root system, I can't get to the other side. And honestly, when I'm talking to residential guys, it's more about trying to get them to understand the micron.
Rick brings up a really good point.
No, I agree.
You need to know the whole system,
Right.
because sometimes you can jack open liquid lines.
Well, even a piston smaller. a piston on the liquid line, if you don't have an expansion device that doesn't slam completely closed, it's still less than a quarter inch.
I'm always gonna recommend pulling from multiple ports of the system. So if you got a 2-port residential system, you're gonna pull from high side and low side. For what I was trying to explain is the microns and how it works, because a lot of guys, what will happen is, and that's the one way you can test it, just to show them how microns work, right? When it's all the way farthest from the pump, right, versus where you're pulling it from, it makes a difference and it kind of shows them. And what it's really getting at is, okay, you go to isolate the system, your micron gauge is doing this. Don't freak out. Now, if it's flying, like you said, it's going up over 1,000, yeah, you got an issue. But it's most likely in that system. But if it's just creeping up slowly, it's probably gonna get, if it's 300, it might slowly go up to 600, 700, and it's gonna settle. Well, at least you're not dealing with a leak, right? Maybe some moisture became, sort of looking for, yeah.
I got another one though.
Yes.
To really get you going. So if I have a, like a ice machine, a Manitowoc ice machine or something, there's 4 ports that I gotta pull from because there's places for that gas to be trapped. in.
Right.
They're all quarter-inch fittings. What am I gonna do with all that?
So you're gonna take,
Just like stick that 3/8 up to that thing because I'm actually frozen moisture. If you pull too fast or too large, you freeze, right?
did you gun? You need the catboy tubes, it's good.
Just do it.
I mean, because the thing is, if you got a lot of moisture in there, I don't care if you're pulling with a 3 CFM or if you're pulling with a 12 CFM,
Just do everything the same.
you're gonna freeze it. It's gonna happen. That's what guys always says, like, okay, I pull it through a quarter inch hose,
Start sucking oil out of the compressor.
you're just gonna freeze it slower.
When we say we evacuate to get rid of moisture, but then we also talk about freezing. And it's not, if you've got liquid moisture in there enough to freeze and make actual chunks of ice, then
No, water.
watch your vacuum pump oil. If your vacuum pump goes milky white as soon as you start, within a
I'm about to
minute
get
or
to
so,
that too.
you know you got a bigger problem.
I'll explain oil right down to you.
Well,
Yeah, I do.
it's just nitro. Test it
It's
first.
It's like when they send you up on the roof, it's 15, 18 degrees outside, and you can fix that when you pull the charge out, and I'll put your vacuum pump on there. How long are you supposed to let that thing run when it's 15 degrees outside?
I'm gonna tell you exactly down in a minute. I'll tell you down in a minute when you need to change your back.
More overheat.
The real quick thing on micron gauges, Blueback's a good brand. There's no knocks whatsoever. I always, when I say the 3 best micron gauges I like, obviously I'm biased with this one. It's traceable.
I just use both the same brand if you're doing the 2-line thing,
Yeah,
right? Because you can have 200 micron swing, 400 micron swing from manufacturer to manufacturer. I had a Halo of Hope, I call it. So it's a 1/2-inch tube with 8 fittings. Everybody puts their micron gauge on it, hook up to it with the 6 CFMs and watch the reference for only micron.
gotcha.
You know what I mean? They can swing 200 to 400 microns.
So I don't know if they're NIST certified. I know the thermal is, and I know RSES. I'm not saying that it's a knock by any means. So any manufacturer can take their micron gauge, sent to NIST laboratories, National Institute of Standards and Testing, right? And get it NIST certified. So ours are NIST certified. So they've been older than our micron gauge up in you can test yours. And it reaches their parameters.
Big bucks.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why a lot of people don't tend to not do it, but, so accuracy, I know this thing's amazing, it really is, not cheap. This is a $350.
I know a guy that carried that in his pocket that worked here and waved that around everywhere he ever went. That was going micron gauge 2 years.
And again, I think Blueback's there too, they're great gauges, they really are. One thing about these is they're durable, big difference is,
You can actually clean it for real.
what's that?
You can actually clean it for
They come
real.
with filter pads.
All right.
So you get a 10-pack filter pad when you're in there. When you peel this out, you've got a screen in there, you can see both sets. And then if you look at,
So it's actually serviceable. That's nice.
that's the other filtration they have too. So you're doing everything you can to keep. And then just like everybody else, we recommend denatured alcohol. So what
Stick
you're
it on
gonna
the
do
end
is,
of a hose and let it hang down. Let it roll on.
what was the one? There was one out there where like you get supposedly recalibrated and stick it in a plastic bag and put it in the freezer and you let it sit there for 12 hours and pull it back out. Rudy and I talked about that one.
That's from the guy that makes
Supposed to hang chicken bones?
Yeah. Pretty much you do, you just pull this filter out, right? Pour your alcohol in there, seal it up, and just kind of roll it around, make sure it gets in there. Drain it out. And they usually, from what I've been told, they want you to keep it open for about 12 hours. Right, for the alcohol to dissipate, but that'll keep everything clean. The difference with this one is 2 sensors. A lot of guys always ask, they say, you know, why do I need it to be at 750,000 microns? You don't care about accuracy. If you're working on larger systems, chillers and things like that, that's when you want a micron gauge that reads higher. That's what I would say is. So you got the one I had at 3 lines, 2 lines, and then pop 2,500 is when I started registering numbers, right? What if I don't leak you 10,000?
You're screwed.
If I'm thinking I'm gonna be there for 10 hours and pulling out a vacuum on this thing, I wouldn't know any difference, right?
You're not gonna do that. You're gonna have a manual gauge on there. Just to see, I don't even look at my micron gauge, so I start getting down below 30, but now since I won't have a manifold, I'll be putting it on the core tool like you're saying. But I don't even get crazy until I get down below,
But the thing is,
until I get under
you
30.
guys are kind of ahead of the curve already. That's why I'm
Well,
trying to get guys to use these.
that's a good gauge.
So, but what'll happen is, like I said, I was under the quay, right? What's coming down, it stopped at 66,000 microns. I never would have known that if this thing was started registering at 50 or 10 or 5.
It's 1,600.
Yeah.
Does no one show the rate too? Rate's nice.
Good, okay, because then you take a test on the
Down, the thing with the rate though is, you get down and say you get stuck at 900. You go down there and you rock the compressor a little bit, you'll see it jump up, and then now it'll come down really quick to 80.
Yeah.
And you burp it again, and it goes up again, but then it comes down really quick to 7.
There's lots of tricks out there, right?
I say, what give the tricks of the trade?
The other big thing about this one is, what happens is, like I told you with recovery rates, anybody can write whatever they want on the back of the box, right? So that's where the NIST principle standards come in, but the other thing is. The reason why they don't create a wide range of like 50,000 to 1 or atmosphere to 1, because the larger the range, the accuracy goes down, right? Yeah. So what we've done is the reason
You
why.
only need it to be accurate below 5.
Yeah, 1,000, you
I
know.
mean, that's been the industry standard. I don't think anybody had anything. I like get it down below 600 or something.
Oh, I agree,
It was
agree.
500, and then a lot of manufacturers, depending on what you're working on, Cascade, super low freezer stuff. So even like minimum 200.
I went up there,
Say,
there's ice cream.
The Mitsubishi, they want you down in the twos.
Juice.
Does that have any other, numbers, tags besides, microns?
Oh, yeah, you can switch whatever you want, PSIG,
So switching.
M-bar, whatever you want.
Inches and
Yep,
mercury.
yep, absolutely.
Millimeters of mercury up your roof.
So the other big thing about this one is we have 2 sensors. This is how we get the accuracy, but still take it from atmosphere down. The first sensor goes from atmosphere to 15,000 microns. When it is 15,000 microns, it switches over to another more accurate sensor, takes that from 1499 down to 1. So there's 2 sensors.
How much pressure will it take?
I can't remember what's on the back of the box.
There's always a question because.
No, I agree,
It
yeah.
accidentally forgets, they start charging. All of a sudden like, oh shit, I got 100 PSI.
Well, that's
Did I
also,
kill my?
that's
gauge?
also when the,
I'm gonna say, I've never.
you know, these core control tools, a lot of guys will do is they'll put these on the port here, on the side of your core tool, and then hook the micron gauge up to here. So that way they can screw this in and out, manage your,
Even if you forget to do it.
that's not very rare.
Come on, we discussed this. It's a
I
high
understand.
40 degrees. The first sign
Yeah.
of heat stress is confusion.
I can't remember, it says it on the website, it says what the pressure rating is, I think we're coming out. Well, it's gonna be much higher for your positive pressure rates.
Like some guys just leave them on there until they're fully charged and it's running.
I will say this, these things are pretty durable, they got a video where they drop one off a 2-story building. They use it as a hockey puck, a hockey stick, and smack it in the garage door and put it in dirt, dump water over it, and everything else. Don't do that, but they're pretty durable.
Oh, cost of that one, $250, something?
I don't know, about list.
For which one? The red one or the yellow one?
These are actually the same thing. This is an older version of it. This is what you're gonna buy.
Is it $3?
Yeah, list.
Right here.
I always,
I just paid him $100 to check my bag.
I would shoot up, right? So the distribution will be able to, whatever distributor you work at, they'll be able to.
You don't want to buy them used.
And it comes with, it's this, you get your 90-degree fitting, get your 45-degree fitting. And as I said, it comes with the total package.
Yeah.
All right, oil. Oil's interesting. Not a lot of people understand what oil completely does in the process of vacuum. There's a couple things. Usually when they first came out with this stuff, they call it sealing oil, right? It's sealing oil because all of these are pretty much two-stage rotary vanes, right? You got a rotary vane set up inside of this thing, it's going like this, the oil comes across, creates a seal. Let's try to tell the people it's like a windshield wiper, right? You also have that windshield wiper on the inside, the cavity that's coming through, oil comes through and creates that seal that creates your vacuum. It's a little different than that, but to try to get the vision close enough. Right.
It helps me.
It's pretty impressive. We've actually taken apart, you got a stainless steel cylinder on the inside with a slit in it. It was like a poly. I don't know, it's like
Something, policy.
yeah, poly, thank you. And you got in there, and it's offset, so it goes like this. And that's pretty much what you're vacuum.
Oh, it's an offset load
What's that?
compressor.
Sure, yes. So, but that's what you're getting, and then that oil comes in there and creates a seal. So originally it's called sealing oil. So that
Cause it ends up on the ceiling.
that's not an art pump. That's usually walls, I think. Stuff like that.
No oil, no seal.
I'll get into that too. So vacuum pump oil is what I would say is like, it's a dry sponge. Okay, if I pour water in this table right now, I take a brand new dry sponge and I go pick up that water. I get halfway through, I can't pick up any more water. Why? Sponge is full, right? So how do I pick up the rest of the water? Squeeze out the sponge, bring out my sponge. It's the same thing with vacuum. That's what it is. That's what it does. You can only put so much moisture into oil inside your vacuum. So when I used to talk to guys, like, okay, how often do you change your oil? And nobody would talk. So then I said, how often should you change your oil? And then everybody says the best answer I get is after every use, right? Because that's what it usually says in the back of the bottle. So this is, I mean, you know, you got some pumps out there now coming out with these quick oil changes. We've had this pump out for 12 years with 5-second oil change, right?
If not the first one, but after you figure it out, then.
Right. 10 seconds, then 5 seconds.
First one might take a couple minutes. Ask Carl.
So literally to find out when you need to change your oil, you know, you work on large systems, you might have to change your oil 15 times. I was on a train system in Notre Dame. They built a new ice arena in Notre Dame. And I was meeting some guys, it was HEG Mechanical in the South Bend. I was meeting with the service manager the day before. It's like, listen, go out, meet Mike tomorrow morning up on the roof. Like, if you show him something, he's impressed. He wants to bring it in, we'll bring him in. You swear to time. I don't do that with him. I walk up, I got this thing, I got my bag strapped on the side. I got the tie on, he's looking at me. It's this guy. All right. Just give me a couple minutes. Let me show you. So can't believe we actually do. I think it was 200 tons each system. I think it was, and then on the one side you could hook up to 4 ports. So we had our old manifold on the half-inch, you know, bore and everything else. I had 3 hoses hooked up to it from here. So the half-inch, used to have a 6-inch half-inch hose that popped up to here to that half-inch bore manifold, and I had 3 hoses off that.
What size? 3/8.
What's that?
So it's half.
It was half-inch. Now this was a half-inch hose come up like this. Into my half-inch fitting of my manifold, and a half-inch bore in the manifold. Yeah, I took 3 of these hoses. So I had
What are
2 of
these
these.
hoses? 3/8.
These are our half-inch. All of our
So
vacuums
half,
are
3 halves.
So I took 2 halves off of here and then 1 half off of my manifold. 3 half-inch hoses going to the system. Within 45 minutes, I had it down to about, I think it was 2,200 microns, which is pretty dang good for that size system. But I changed the oil 7 times in that 45 minutes.
Wow.
So, but what happens is I can literally tell you down to the second when you change your oil. How do you know that? What do you think tells you?
Hold on.
Watch your micron. So if your micron gauge is ripping down, right? You know, okay, moisture is being taken from the system and put into the pump. Once it starts to slow, that's when you change your oil. Because what's happening is in your sump or whatever you have on your pump, right? Your oil is, you only fit so much moisture. You get down to a certain point, this is where a lot of guys waste time, and it's okay. I get down to 5,000 microns, things are slow, and it's just gonna be slow from here on out, right? So what's happening is, can't fit any more moisture in there. So what happens to your pump? Your pump gets hot after it's running. What are you doing? You're pulling the moisture out of the water or out of the oil, and that's what your exhaust for. So you're letting that out. But what you're doing is you're letting a little bit out, okay, a little more can come in, a little bit out, a little bit more can come in. Maybe you just put a brand new dry sponge in,
Yeah.
right?
Change your oil.
So that's what I'm always saying is you don't know when to change. You may not have to change your oil job. You may have to change it 5 times. You have to change it 10 times. What are you done with? So that's where we came out with the 5-second oil change. But so what happens is, and another reason why a lot of pumps are called throwaways, right? So I was explaining my nice windshield wiper analogy with the rotary thing, poly something or other. What happens is all the debris you're pulling out of that system now in your current pumps, right? So you could have some grazing or whatever else, whatever's in there, flex, dirt molecules, whatever it is. That stuff gets in there and tears apart that rotary vane. So it's like having a brand new set of windshield wiper, right? It's nice, everything's good, no streaks. You start getting cuts in that windshield, you start leaving streaks. It's the same thing with the rotary vane, right? So you lose your vacuum capabilities. That's one of the main reasons why a lot of pumps are called rolling pumps, right? Because they bring everything out of the system into the rotary vane. What we do with this is that's where this debris tube comes. So there's a little screen up in here, right? As it's brought into the pump, everything's gravity fed down that screen or into this tube, so you're not bringing all the debris into the rotary vanes. You keep our rotary vanes a lot cleaner and fresher. The other way you look at oil, and this is interesting. I promise you I'm not selling snake oil. I have another good mechanical contractor I worked with for a long time out before when Havel Brothers, part of EMCOR. And they would always give me positive feedback, right? Not positive, but they would give me honest feedback. So Advent came out with this oil. Now, first of all, this is what oil should look like, right? Nice and clear. Like I take it in and guys will go to the bubble of fuel and try drinking it, but don't know how it's gonna die. All vacuum pump oil is a grade of mineral oil, right? So all of them are. Did you ever notice when you walk in and buy some oil, like one company's got it figured out where the bottles are black, so you can see what it looks like. Other company, they're white, so you can't see what it looks like. I give Yellow Jacket kudos because they've got a clear bottle and you can actually see what their oil looks like. You should be able to see it. If it looks yellow or brown, don't get it. Because all vacuum pump oil is hygroscopic. You don't know when it was manufactured, you don't know how long it was sitting in the manufacturing, you don't know how long it was sitting in the industry, right? So if it's yellow or brown, you pretty much got a wet sponge as it already is. What we did was we came out with a hydrophobic oil, right? Repels moisture. And there was actually a way that I could prove this when I lost it. I think it was a root. But what happens is we sell this. The best way to buy our oil is a little more expensive than everybody else. But the difference is this is a 0.007 vapor pressure rate. It's much drier, starts at a much drier point. It's almost like taking that sponge in the package, that dry sponge, pulling vacuum on it, right?
Super dry.
And then putting it in. You're not filling more moisture in it, you're pulling it quicker. Does that make sense? Capacity is the same, it's just you're starting at a much lower point. So that's where this comes in. The other nice thing is with the oils that you're using. So you guys normally buy gallons, right? Quarts. I'll be honest, the best way to buy ours is this way. We've got the cartridges, and if you have one of our pumps, you're gonna need these, right? Let's have 3 of these. We have gallons, we have quarts, and we have this. The best way, money-wise, dollar to ounce, is buying quarts. Every time you take that cap off, right? You're up on that hot rooftop. Every time you take that cap off that oil in that gallon, guess what? Fortunes is soaking right in. So by the time you get halfway through that gallon, guess what? You're dealing with a wet sponge. So what I did was, when we first came out with this oil, we had a gallon, I took it over there. I give my 3 cases up. They were using our pumps and JB pumps. So running them both. So I want to know, I'm not going to go out and tell guys this stuff's the, what, just because of the manufacturing system. They came back, that's all they use. It makes a huge difference. You'll see when you empty your pumps, you're gonna see a lot more crud come out with it too. Makes a huge difference. You can use ours in everybody else's pump and ours, and honestly, you can use theirs and ours and so on. So it goes back and forth. I think you'll notice a big difference for us.
Who sells the oil?
Pretty much everybody. Who do you guys want to shop with? Pretty parts and supplies and.
Yeah,
Whatever's closest.
yeah, whatever close.
I do a lot of trains with Ken over at Wolf. They usually have this stuff. Having their RSC Johnstone. Pretty much everybody has access to it. The courts, still trying to get people to bring in the courts. I know, it's tough. And
Does no Calgon have oil?
That's a good question. I think they had like Orlando back. I don't know for sure, but I'm assuming that everything else they have is oil. So going back to it, and that's the other thing is this 5-second oil change. The nice thing about it is that's your son, right? The cartridge is over. You're not leaving any oil inside the pump sitting in the rotary vanes. So as I explained before, with soft starting torque versus hard starting torque with everybody else's pumps, we flip it out, it hammers real hard. think about this, you have weather like it is today, right? It's 30 degrees in the morning and that's almost 60 today. So getting days like that, the spring or the fall or whatever else it is, you're gonna work on a system. You didn't change your oil from the day before, so when you got sitting in there, you got oil and moisture just jump, right? So it gets cold overnight. What happens to oil when it gets cold? It gets up or it freezes because you got moisture in it. That's why they need a hard starting torque. What happens is you're gonna flip that thing on, you pretty much go into slush, right? So rotor vane's gotta get going, smack that stuff
No
around.
point in even trying to change your oil, you're not gonna drain, a lot of it's not gonna even drain out.
At that point, no. So either you're putting it in,
Run it on a deadhead,
putting up on
plug
the
it-
heater or whatever else and trying
Plug
to
it in
warm
the
it up.
wall, let it run for 15 minutes, then change your oil.
Right, because it needs to heat up and loosen up and everything else. So that's why you have soft starting torque. A hard starting torque, every time you kick it on, it just runs that machine ragged. So with this one, it's gonna be a nice soft starting torque. We don't need to worry about all that stuff, because what's gonna happen is there's a tray up here. Oh, and this works is there's a tube on the inside here, right? That tube pulls in just enough oil to come up and coat that rotary vane on the inside. It's gonna grab all the moisture and contaminants, and then the red cap up here dumps all of that dirty oil back in. So recycling the oil out of this, right? So what I'm telling guys is when the micro gauge is coming down, it starts to slow. Don't wait for it to stop. When it starts to slow, that's when you're gonna change your oil. So there's two different ways of doing it, right? One is you don't have to turn the pump off. You have another cartridge ready. Pop this out, right? Take this one, pop this one in. Just make sure the tube's on the inside of it. What I do, I isolate the system, right? Take my pump off. I'll let this drain for about 10 to 15 seconds. I'll pull this out, put a new cartridge in, fire this back up, open up the system. You'll see the micro gauge kick up a couple hundred points. It'll grab as soon as the new oil gets in here. It's gonna rip right down to the next. But that's how to get your process running a lot quicker. It's changing out that oil. We're saying about, pulling positive pressure on the pump, what happens?
Inject the oil.
Right. I don't know if this is true. I was up in Michigan, was doing a training, and one guy said that he was working at the hospital. Down in the basement, there's all like white walls and everything else he's working around, and he's like standing behind his pump and it pulled really oil out, hit him, left some lemon stuff on the wall. That's the story I was told. It's pretty elaborate, but hey, it's a little bit of fun to see. We don't have that problem. Any positive pressure is gonna pull down the debris tube. What it's gonna do is it's gonna pop this off and down. All you have to do is click that back up. We don't have a gas valve. Every once in a while, the debris, like I said, there's a little screen up in here. You pull that down, just rinse it off, clean it out, air, whatever it may be, and pop that back up and in, you're good to go. I'm still looking for a better term for this, but the only one that everybody's told me so far is, okay, what happens? You leave the pump on overnight, right? So you do. Hopefully with these processes, you're not going to have to do that anymore, but you do. Power goes out. What can happen? Lose your
You
battery.
can suck all the oil out of your vacuum pump.
Right.
Then the car comes back on. And
So the most technical term I've heard of that process is suck back. There's gotta be something better than that. What they've been saying.
You're supposed to put a cylinder.
Instead of mechanical, you have to take one.
Kick it with his boot.
Reverse vacuum. But what'll happen is this will actually, the oil will start filling up in here until it releases back to the sphere, so you're not gonna have to getting back in. The vapor port on this is the exhaust is a standard garden hose connection. So if you're working inside somewhere, you shouldn't be in all those fumes. Stick a regular 25-foot garden hose on there, running out a window, running under a door, whatever it is, so you're pumping all that stuff outside, not so here.
Like the A2L.
No. Okay.
People on towards that, H2O, they'll go out.
Still they are. And then we also have the big thing on this one. Right. Sitting family on the G527, she had the van. You want to keep the process cool as possible, like some of those things, when they were taking thermal imagers on those, they were getting hot. There's one video on one of the brands, they took a bag and cracked it over the back, and actually fried it on the back of that thing. Again, that's expansion contraction with metal, it wears things down. The other problem with that is when your oil heats up, right, things out, it's gassy. So you think you could pull a better vacuum with thicker, cooler oil or thinner hot oil? Right, so that's kind of the point here. It's gonna get warm, but that airflow going through here is gonna keep the whole process a lot cooler.
Now on your pump, you have, so smaller size too with the quick change?
we'll talk about that once the video is done.
Yeah, we don't need it, we don't need.
I know.
I need a 3 CFM and a 1/2 inch hose. Good to go. Oh, get bitch up to a weather maker 88 in a minute. She pull her down.
We did just come out with a relative temperature, humidity and temperature sensor. Or instrument, and we also have our new, I don't want to jump on this because I don't like talking about products all the time, but. You guys want to come up, we do have a wireless gauge set. Don't you guys take a peek at it on the way out. I think that's just about covers it.
Bluetooth compatible and measure quick.
And not much.
Oh, well, that shit out of here. Those are the spots. Where's the fucking pizza and go? I don't think we pay to be in here. That's enough. Look, if it ain't measured quick, it ain't.
No, I think that's why, I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
I don't need any of that. I just need something to tell me what actually going on with the system. So I just use that.
But I think it's pretty much everything. You guys have any questions?
Are they making a smaller vacuum pump for real? Oh. Yeah, that push it.
Maybe something,
Something to say, it's like.
maybe something that's rechargeable, in the pocket.
Well, so, all right,
Keep up with that little fine now.
So, Mr. Tom makes that happen, you can, we'll elaborate. Any other questions, though, guys?
Check that.
Shut it down.
Jeff, like to present you with. Oh, I don't think you got.
Carry it.
No, that's awesome. I love it. Awesome. No, I appreciate you guys. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
What are we gonna talk about? Bring it from. I've learned from you guys as well. And I don't get that a lot, so I appreciate that. Because there's always instances and things that I don't start.
We're the smartest ones, yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.